Morning to you. Happy holidays to you and your loved ones. Thank you very much for making time to join us here on BizCheck this morning on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum. We have a lot lined up for you during this program for the next 2 hours. Our first hour, we shall be discussing why you need a savings plan, specifically for retirement. And in our second hour, we shall be having a conversation about how the year has been, the economic review of the year 2021. But first, in studio, we have Bancy, Kaleli, Moturi, a business development manager at Enwealth Financial Services. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Betty, for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah.
Could you just give us an overview of what a retirement plan entails?
All right. Thank you, Betty. So a retirement plan really is your backup plan for when you leave employment. Now, since COVID came and jobs changed, you could leave employment at any age. Yes. So I'd want to first start by urging our viewers to stop viewing a retirement plan as, what our parents had, or something that comes when you're 60, or NSSF. I see people joke on Twitter and calling themselves NSSF Twitter, yeah? It's not something that's really far off. It's your backup plan at whatever point you'll leave employment. You could be 20, you could be 30, you could be 60. So that's what a retirement plan is.
Right. Now that we know what it is, how do you go about getting one? And just give us the different scenarios for someone maybe who has income that is maybe employed, self-employed, or just an employee of a company, and also someone who maybe has hassles. Today they have job, tomorrow there's nothing.
All right. Okay, so when you're employed, some employers do have a pension scheme within the organization. So those are called occupational scheme. So that's what you'd hear people say, I'm permanent and pensionable. So you join an employer, they have a pension scheme, they have already agreed on the rates of contribution. So your salary is deducted and that's set aside for your retirement. So it's pretty straightforward for people who are employed and their employers have such a scheme. Now, for the people who are self-employed, then we have the option of a personal pension scheme. Now, this is where you go register with an independent provider. You could come to us at Enwealth or any other provider in the market. You open an account, you put in your money at whatever intervals. So this one is a lot more flexible compared to that of the people who are employed, because once you're employed, you have to contribute on a monthly basis. However, for the personal pension, you really contribute when you have money. So when your hustle is doing well, you can set aside some money. The months when it isn't doing so well, then you don't have to set in a contribution. And still it is okay. At least you're putting in steps towards your retirement. So I'd encourage you either way, just take it. Open one. There are no fines. Fortunately for retirement funds, unlike say the insurance policies where you have to pay every month or for a certain amount of time, retirement plans don't have penalties. So if you don't even contribute for a whole year, say COVID hit your business, the whole year you haven't had anything, it's still fine. Your money is still being invested and earning interest. So it's very flexible. I'd urge every Kenyan, if you don't have one with your employer, please think about opening one for yourself on a personal level.
Now, this conversation we are having is very important because a report by Finaccess found out that about 40% of Kenyans have done nothing to prepare for retirement. That is quite a huge chunk, because eventually these people become dependent on the younger people in their lives. Yeah. So why is this the case?
And thank you for bringing that up. We also did the same study, and we found that around only 1 Kenyan out of 7 is ready to prepare to retire. Sorry. Yeah. So you find that many people never think about it. I think you feel like it's something that's really far off. And then unfortunately right now, like what I'm seeing with our generation, there's a YOLO attitude. You live now, you want the soft life, you want to go to Diani, etc. It's Christmas. So we are postponing our future because of the now. And unfortunately, also life is very expensive. I mean, school is expensive. The cost of living has really gone up. So sometimes you find some of us, it's not that we want to postpone the decision, it's just because our shilling is really stretched with other current needs. So from my perspective, number one, it could be an issue of education, that people are not really aware of how much it cost to retire. You know, we saw our parents retiring and they were getting some pension, but we forget that our parents, most of them even worked for one employer for all their lives. So they were assured of some pension. Then we also forget that most of them, at the point of retirement, I see many parents or many of the older generation going back to up country. Now, for our generation, I'm not sure how many of us would want to go back up country. Then also, I'm not sure how many of us will have the privilege of working for all our lives, especially with one employer. So that's why there's then that lack of preparation, because we just think things will flow as we've seen them earlier and before with our parents. However, life has really changed. So I think lack of information on what it takes to retire comfortably, and then also probably lack of access. Previously, pension, you know, was this jargon. People didn't have access to it. People didn't understand it. However, right now we have such advanced ICT platforms where you can open a pension plan at the comfort of your home just by having your phone. For instance, what you do at Enwealth, you just open it online, you fill an online form, you send your money via M-Pesa or bank transfer, and that's it. So I think previously there was the issue of access to these platforms, but right now there are more than enough in the market. So it's just up to us to go and take it up.
So that means there is a need for perception change, right?
I definitely agree there's a need for perception change and education, and I'm very happy to see that our regulator, pension is regulated by the Retirement Benefit Authority. They've really taken up the mandate, and they're really going out to educate members on the importance of having a pension. I saw, was it last week? Yes, I think last week they had an open day in Kisumu, just going to educate the general public. This is what pension means, this is how you can access it. And I think the more we continue having such kind of initiatives, both by the regulator and by us, the private players, then we will have individuals retiring better and having all the information that they need.
Right. There's what you brought up about the YOLO kind of living.
Yes.
What will make sure that the current generation has, say, delayed gratification? Because we want to be happy now, because you never know how tomorrow is.
Yes.
And then you don't plan for tomorrow. So what will it take to change that perception, make sure that even as we enjoy, we are thinking of tomorrow?
Okay, Betty, first it'll take this kind of conversations you're having, and I acknowledge you and KBC for bringing it up. We need to continue shouting about it. Number two, we need to continue making it more accessible. And number three, I think general information. I think, you know, people know, for instance, people will know that there are shares, people will know that there's something called a SACCO. Many people don't fully understand what the pension is. And for the young people, the more we have young people just, you know, pushing this conversation, I think then the others will just tag along with us. So that pension is not viewed as something for the old people. It's something you can save. In fact, it's something that can be your backup in case you lose a job. Because right now with employment, people were leaving jobs that they thought had security. Say, for instance, if you're a teacher or if you're in the restaurant industry, etc., catering, etc. So you felt like you had a stable job only for COVID to hit. So this is a credible and a good backup plan for you in case of such events. So the more we have these conversations, I think the more we'll get the youth on board.
So when someone is saving, can someone save? There are people who just save because savings have to be done.
Yes.
And then there's saving when you're working towards something. Pros and cons of each.
Okay, all right. Now, for the person who just saves because they saw their mother saving, or they know that it's important to save, put some money aside, then good for you. I think that the first step is to just save.
Put something aside.
Even if it's 5 bob, put something aside. That's step number one. So you're in the right track. So the second step then is to classify your savings between short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Now, short-term savings could be, say, I'm saving for a car or I'm saving for a phone. It depends with, you know, your wallet. Short-term savings is, say, for the first 1-2 years, what can I save for that? What are my goals for that period? Then how can I set money aside for it? Now, for instance, right now we're in Christmas. Some people unfortunately, it feels like it was a surprise. Yet they saw the calendar dates moving along. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You are in January, then alas, we are in December. So it's important that even for things like Christmas, because you're going to spend a lot. When you think of transport, you think of food, you think of entertainment. There's definitely going to be a lot of expenditure. So short-term savings are for things like this. Yeah. Then mid-term are for bigger goals or things that will take you, say, 2 to 5 years. Yeah. When you think of going to school, if you want to pursue your masters, for instance, that is could be a mid-term kind of goal. If you want to buy a car as well, sometimes it could take longer. If you want to buy a plot, Kenyans love plots. So maybe you want to buy something worth, say, $500,000, whatever. That can take you around 5 years, isn't it? So that would be a mid-term kind of saving. Then the other one is now long-term. Long-term, you're thinking 5 years plus. Now that's where things like your retirement comes in. Things like where you're going to live. Buying the plot is the first step. Then what are you going to do with it unless you're holding it for speculation? So now you find that those are the long term. So when you're saving, it's important then to have in mind the perception of how long, like is it a long term, medium term, or a short term goal, number one. Then number two, now review that based on your age. Yeah. If I'm 20, I have the luxury of time. So I can easily save for the car, for the land, for the house, etc. But then there are other viewers, say, who are 50 and say you're retiring in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years. Unfortunately, then you don't have the luxury of time. So even when you're thinking about your savings and where to place your money, your age should come into play. Because the younger you are, you can take more risks. You can go into very aggressive kind of savings. The older you are, then I'd encourage you to, minimize the risks so that you don't lose your money at that age. So yes, when you think about savings, think about whether it's the time frame you have, and then also match that to your age. Yes.
You mentioned a little bit earlier the issue about SACCO savings.
Yes.
Most Kenyans, well, over 80% of Kenyans who are earning save on SACCOs or in SACCOs. So is that enough?
Good. That's a good question. Is it enough? I'd say no. It's a good thing to have a SACCO. It's a good backup plan. It's a plan where you can also get a loan. So that's the benefit of having a SACCO. But never put all your money in one basket. So majority of us, because we want more shares so that we can get more loans, dividends, and then especially this time around December, most of the people in SACCOs are very happy. And then also you want to be able to borrow more, So the more money you have, the more you can borrow. So some of us, you find that all our eggs are inside the SACCO. However, previously we've seen also SACCOs, say, being in financial distress. We've had rumors of SACCOs that are mismanaged. So it's important that you diversify. Don't put all your money in one basket. Yes.
So these options of diversification, could you just take us through them?
All right, good. So just the basics. So other than having a SACCO account and a pension account, then you could think about what other assets you could get. When you talk about assets, it could be shares. You could be a shareholder through the listed companies, or you could go even in private equity. Some funds are not listed, so you could buy a stake there. You could buy the government bonds. I've seen over the last few years, we've had a number of bonds, and also the infrastructure bonds that are very lucrative. So you could also expose yourself, in terms of bonds. You could buy property, land. So there are very many avenues available. Even offshore, you could feel like, Kenyan is too saturated, or probably you can get better return abroad. So really, it's up to you. And I'd say get into an investment that you understand. There are so many options. Even guys are going to come and start telling you, things to do with, other assets that are abroad, or Bitcoin, things like Bitcoin, so it's important that you get into a business that you understand. Then also evaluate your risk profile. Are you a high risk person? Are you very risk tolerant? Or are you low risk? If you lose your money, will you have sleepless nights? Or will you tell yourself, it's fine, at least I tried? So it's important to know yourself. Don't just invest because everyone else is buying is buying it, first take time to understand what it is that you're buying. Yeah,
it's important that you brought that up, because people work hard for their money, and you want to put your money somewhere you know at least will be safe. 90% of it you're assured of the money being safe. So what precautions do people need to take before they put their money anywhere in terms of savings?
Good question. So number one is to understand how that business works. So from the top management, it's important to know, like, who's the CEO, how long do they stay even in that company, are they people who come in and leave? So the top management, are they credible people? Are they people who've been listed in every scandal, or are they people who have, you know, a very good track record? So number one, look at the leadership, because normally we say that everything starts and falls and ends at the leadership level. So if you have poor leaders, then just expect that eventually the cracks are going to show. So leadership. Number two is to understand then what does a company do? How do they generate that revenue? Because I think this is how people are pulled into Ponzi schemes. You're told that, bring your money, then when you bring someone else, you get some money, and when you try to understand what is it exactly that we do to get this money, there's no clear where do the profits come from? There's no clear indication of how do we get this money. So then you find yourself in problems. So it's important to understand, okay, so this is what they buy, this is what they sell, and this is how they make money. You can look at their financials. Sometimes, for instance, the listed companies, they always publish in the dailies. It could feel like jargon, but just check what are the profits. Are they making money? Are they losing money? And from just such kind of research, then you'd be able to figure out whether it's a company you want to identify yourself with. Finally, I think something we are very strong with, and we really recommend at Enwealth, is also to look at the values. You want to work with a company whose values resonate with you, so that, you know, you're not funding, say, a business that you have issues with. So it's also to look at, is there an alignment? Are there people who you'd like to be, you know, in business with? Yes.
Right. So that is for someone who can do their own research.
Yes.
So assuming someone is not in that position or does not trust their own education or understanding in that sector, what experts can they go to help them in that journey?
Okay. I've seen there's a lot of financial advisors and investment advisors. Actually, it's a service I'd recommend if it's something that you'd want, because they're professionals. They're people who understand these things inside out. So you could look for an investment advisor. Look for someone who's independent. You know, sometimes you could find someone who's only selling their product. Say, for instance, if I work for XYZ company, I'll tell you this is the best, and I'll not tell you about anything else. So get an independent investment advisor, and then they'd be able to guide you well.
Well, we are talking about saving for retirement, saving for your short-term or medium-term goals, and we are with Bancy Kaleli Moturi. She is the Business Development Manager at Enwealth Financial Services. If you have any questions, you're looking at your income and wondering where to put what or how to put something aside, you can just ask your questions on Twitter. We are at KBC Channel 1. My personal Twitter handle is at Betty Kiptum. On Facebook, we are at KBC Channel 1 News, and you can also catch up with us there on YouTube at KBC Channel 1. Now, Bancy, coming back to you, we've talked about the retirement plan that people have. Let's focus on, say, a real case scenario, a young person. They've just maybe gotten their first job. How do they go about it?
Okay, great. So if you got in your first job, and say your employer has a pension scheme, so say, for instance, they'll tell you they're contributing 10%, and say you do 5%, or you also match it, 10%. So that is deducted from your salary. So say it's my first job, so I'm earning, say, 50,000. So 10% of 50,000 means every month my employer is deducting 5,000 from my salary, and they're also contributing 5,000 on my behalf. Let me pause there and say, by the having a pension scheme means you're getting more value from your employer, because this 5,000 is over and above the salary that you guys agreed on. So you're getting more value from your employer. So yes, this money goes into the pension scheme. It is invested. Now, nothing stops you from adding into that fund. You know, the thing about retirement, and I think if there's one message I'd want to leave even for the young people, imagine retirement is real, number one, and number two, we will retire. I mean, now we are going to a new year. Now we are a year older.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So retirement is coming, and it's coming very fast. And unfortunately, unlike our parents where retirement was age 55 or 60, us guys will retire earlier, probably at 30 or 40. You'll be told that, you know what, you're redundant, or you're too old for this role, or ICT, with all this ICT coming up.
Out some jobs,
yeah, it'll get to a point where a computer is just being interviewed over here. So it's very important that you remember that retirement is coming, and it's coming sooner than we think. So you can put in a lot more by yourself. It's called additional voluntary contribution. So you go to your HR or your trustees, you can ask them for an additional voluntary contribution form, so you can commit to contribute more. Now, the best thing, or one of the best things about pension, is that you get to save on taxation. So as you're contributing more, there's a tax relief for the first 20,000 shillings you contribute. So if you want to pay less tax, then this is an avenue to just encourage you to save and also save on the tax. So you can get the AVC and just as much as possible continue adding to the pool. Right now, for the employed people, I know some people are getting bonuses. Honestly, you could open a personal pension account, put the money in there, let it earn interest. For instance, this year we are looking at interests of around 14-15%. That's a very high rate of return. So you can imagine if you put in your money there for 1 year, earning 14% is really a good return for you, and it will really boost you when you're thinking long term. So don't opt out of the savings if you're employed, and add as much as possible, so at least by the time you're leaving, you have a bigger chunk. Then another benefit of pension, and if you're recently employed, is that you'll get then to benefit from the return, the compounded return. So what that means is that if this year I'd saved, say, 100k, and then my return is 15%, so that will be 15,000. Next year, the amount of money that's going to be invested is 115,000. So it's not just the 100k. So you find that because of compounding, then your funds grow really fast. Yeah, if they just need time. But then the thing about pension just needs time. Leave your money and it will work for you. In case you get to leave the employer, because you know now as a young person, say you've gotten employed, then you see a better deal and you want to move to a new employer. I'd really encourage you, don't cash out, because there's the option of removing your money at the point of retirement. Don't cash out. Don't use
retiring at 22.
Exactly. We worked for 2 years. Yeah. No, don't cash out. If you can, leave your money in the scheme. You can move it to your new employer. You can move it to a personal pension scheme. However, let your money continue working for you. You work very hard, so don't let your money, rest. And compounding is one of the ways your money works for you very well.
How about now for the hustlers? The entrepreneurs who have a vision to retire by 40 and enjoy life in the Maldives. How can they go about it?
I like the vision. Where there's a vision, then at least I think you're going to put the steps. So once you decide when you want to retire, then it's important you work backwards. Let it not be a wish. Yeah, okay. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, oh, I wish I was president, or I wish I retired at 40. But you have to put in the work. So one way of doing it is start thinking backwards. So if I want to retire at 40, how much money will I need at that 40? Normally statistics say that you should have at least 75% of your current income in retirement. So say right now I'm earning, that is a recommended. Say I'm earning 100k right now, 100,000 shillings. So in retirement, I should be able to earn at least 75,000 shillings, so that my life is comfortable. So now with that understanding, now work backwards. So you can say, if I retire at 40, how long will I live? People are living till, say, 75, 80, So let's say 40 years, another 40 years. So now you need to work out how much money do you need to sustain you for that 40 years. Then now just put in the work. Save now, invest, so that by the time you're retiring, then you have enough money. Then also, something else I'd want to urge the viewers, previously retirement was viewed as a period where you just go and sit at home, and that's why even we'd see, like, when people are retiring, you're given a djembe and I don't know, a clock. You're given like gifts that, okay, I don't know how they were supposed to help you then. So retirement right now, it's really not, a time to just laze. It's important that you have your time, that you can relax when you want to, but it's also important to keep yourself busy. So you can think of, like, yes, I'll retire at 40, but I have another 40 years. So what can I do with those 40 years? Can I consult? Can I, work in the community? Can I join the church and, minister? Can I start a business? Maybe I know something so well that people will want to come and learn from me. So can I also mentor people who want to get into that business? So other than money, I think for you to have a wholesome life, of course you need the money, but also there's a lot more to live for. So as you're thinking of retiring at 40, it's to ask, then what are we gonna do when we retire? How can we give back, and how can we also keep ourselves busy? Because really we can't sit around for 40 years. You get very tired.
It's fun for a few months.
I know, after that it becomes very boring. So it's important that you also think about that as you're planning for your retirement.
Now, when you're talking about money, we plan with time and expecting that things will go well.
Yes.
Occasionally, like last year and this year as well, things just go south. So can you plan for such shocks?
You can, and how you plan for such shocks is through diversification. And as I said, never put all your eggs in one basket, because if you do that, the day when your basket is, has holes, now you'll have nothing. So how to plan for the shocks is because we don't know the future. Who would have thought that schools would be closed for a whole year? If I had money to start a school, probably some of us would have started schools everywhere, because you're like, of course people are having babies and the babies must go to school. So it's important that you diversify, and through diversification is where you take care of such shocks. For instance, last year we saw that equities market really didn't perform, like share prices really went low. So for instance, if you're in a pension fund, then you'd see that you are probably incurring losses because of the loss in value of the equities. This year equities have gained back the value, and they're doing pretty well. So you shelter yourself from such shocks through diversification. So there are things that probably sometimes don't change in value a lot. Things like government bonds. Government bonds are more or less stable. Property is also a pretty stable avenue. Then now you can play around with the other ones. So it's important as you're investing, you think of how can you put your money in different pockets, so that if one pocket is torn, the rest of them can hold on that, can hold off for a while.
Right.
Yes.
Well, next year is an election year for Kenya. And well, the Kenyan circle, every 5 years the economy dips and then starts picking up again with the transition of government. What do you foresee for the pension sector next year?
Okay. Right now, thankfully, we are recovering. I really hope the recovery will be sustained for a few months into the new year. Of course, as you've said, there's normally a dip around election time. So around August, we'd expect a dip, probably as investors are, trying to see what is the next avenue. So we'd expect we'll not probably perform as well as we have in 2021. However, the prospects are very positive. So what I'd want to say for the general public, number one, don't be scared of starting a pension because of these elections. We've diversified. If we could go through COVID and we've gone through very many election cycles, then this is not the first. You find many pension schemes even have exposure offshore. They've bought into assets offshore. So there's nothing to worry about. You still invest in your pension. Feel free to talk to us. Then number two, just put your savings and your house in order. We don't know what will happen. We have a new COVID variant. We have elections. So it's important to just have an emergency fund also on the side in case things don't go as planned, especially when it comes to those who are employed, because you don't know for how long then we will be able to sustain it. Say some people might have layoffs, you never know. So it's important to also just on a personal level have something on the side.
Well, it's the festive season. People are about to spend a lot of money, as you said.
Yes.
We shall be discussing that in a little bit, but now we want to take a quick break. When we come back, what should you be spending and how should you be spending during this Christmas period? Do stay with BizCheck. Thank you for staying with Channel 1. This is BizCheck and my name is Betty Kiptum. Now in studio we are having quite an interesting discussion around money, savings, as well as how to manage your spending during this holiday period. I am with Bancy Kaleli Moturi. She's the Business Development Manager at Enwealth Financial Services. Thank you for staying with us, Bancy.
Thank you so much, Betty, for having me.
Awesome. Now it's the holidays. People are definitely going to spend. There is a report that was released, is it 2 days ago, that over 60% of Kenyans do not have plans for this Christmas period. Let's start there. Is that a good thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. You know, based on I think our culture, and when you look at even how we've been spending historically, people really wait for Christmas. We joke around that like you'll see the lawyers going with all their sofa sets, etc. back home, but it's because of the excitement that we have around Christmas. So to hear that 60% of Kenyans don't have a plan, it should raise some eyebrows. It just means that probably people are really stretched, and so they'd opt to just, you know, sit at home or really have nothing to do for that day. Yeah. Right.
So for those who are planning to spend, is there something like sensible spending over the holidays?
Yes, there is. I'm sure right now there's a lot of, you know, the holiday seasons have a lot of emotive. You spend because of your emotions. You're excited, you spend. You see someone from the village and they call you the big names. They call you Bazoom, Weshimiwa, Chief, yeah. Everything, Chairman, everything nice. And you know, they spruce up your ego and you find yourself spending a bit more on them, yeah? So it's very important that you're not being led by emotions. So it's have a budget for Christmas. So if I'm gonna go up country, how much am I going to spend? How much will I pay for the trip, if I'm fueling or if I'm buying a ticket? Unfortunately, it's also quite late. If you're buying right now, I'm sure the prices are very high if you want to buy a ticket on the bus or shuttle. But it's important that you have a very clear budget. So are we buying a goat? Are we buying a cow? How much will that cost? How much am I spending at church? Because you know now when you go to church, then also they see you and they start calling you all those names and telling you the way we've not seen you in a whole year.
You are building something for the past year. You
know? In fact, you're called to the podium to say hi, yeah? And that comes with additional pressure. So it's important to have a clear budget. This is how much I'm going to spend. Then it's also very, very important that you remember, you know, some people have been paid their January, the end of December salaries now around this time. So December has double salary, and sometimes you could forget that money is for January. So it's very important to avoid January through taking care of your January expenses now. So for instance, if you could pay off your rent for January right now, that would be great. If you've been paid, take care of some of the basic needs. Yeah, it could be things like school fees. But their parents next year are gonna pay school fees, is it 4 times? Yeah, so there's a lot more expenses for you. So it's very important that you take care of them now when you can. So you can take care of the basic needs. So whatever you go with for the holidays, then that's for you to, you know, enjoy. But have limits. I normally like to say that no is a complete answer. If you ask me for give me 1, 2, 3 and I say no, I don't have to explain that unajua kuna nini. No is complete.
The explanations are mostly emotional.
Exactly. And then sometimes when you explain, you're forced to lie sometimes, or then your explanation, you know, I may not understand. For instance, if you tell me you have school fees, no, I can't give you because I have to pay school fees. Then I'll be like, no, but you can pay school fees in February or whatever. No, I start arguing with you. Yeah, so it's important to have boundaries and have a very clear budget. So this is what you'll spend on entertainment. This is what you'll spend on the basic needs, the food, etc. This is what you'll spend on transport. And then this is for January, because January you'll come back, you have to go to work. I normally see people, especially for the guys who have like house helps, they've gone, they spent all the money. Now they call you, they're like, nitumia transport. Yeah. So don't spend all your money that you don't have money to go back to work. Yeah. So just make sure that you have enough money for January, so that also you're not it's not an anticlimax. You've not come from a really nice season, then you're really dipping low because you have nothing left. Yeah. So spend sensibly through having a budget and taking care of your expenses as early as possible. In fact, if you can leave Nairobi having paid all the the basic needs, I think you'll be okay. Yeah, because at least now you'll know when you come back, no one is asking you for school fees. You've already bought the uniform and the shoes. You're not gonna go queue, very long queues. You've already paid for the rent, so you won't have issues with your landlord, etc. Yeah.
Right. So because most people in December they are living like kings.
Yeah.
In January you live like a pauper.
Imagine, it's very sad. Yeah, I think it's very sad. And you know what? For the guys who are spiritual, imagine God has given you the opportunity to be a steward over something. It's important that you spend it wisely. Yeah. Don't waste your talents, or don't waste the resources that are in your possession. Yeah. Then now start regretting in January.
Right.
Yeah.
So enjoy within your means. That's
exactly. Live within your means. Living within your means, by the will give you very much satisfaction and freedom in your entire life, not even now in Christmas.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of pressure, especially since we've been talking about the young people. I mean, when you go on social media, on Instagram, everyone is just, living it up. Yeah. So it's important that you remember that first of all, you don't even know where they've gotten their money from. Let's start from there. So if you're making an honest living, really live within your means. You've worked for 30 whole days. You shouldn't blow that money in 3-4 days and then start suffering for another, we say January is 73 days. Start suffering for another 73 days. Live within your means. You can say no. Budget as much as possible. And as you're budgeting, sometimes the problem you make is that you budget, then you don't take time to evaluate. Are you really working within your budget? So it's important also at the end of the day, you keep track. Yeah. There are very many apps. You can even download an app or use Excel just to manage your expenses. So if I spent 1,000 here, because some expenses are small, you will not remember. For instance, if you paid say fare 20 bob or 50 bob, these small expenses sometimes are the ones that creep up and become very big expenses.
Yes.
So it's important that even as you're budgeting, you're tracking so that you don't overspend in one category. And if you overspend in one category, so say for instance for food, I've budgeted for the whole month, say 10,000, yeah, for a family. I've budgeted 10,000, and then I find that people are eating a lot more, so I'm spending more than that 10,000. It's to ask which other category can I get my money from. So say for instance, if entertainment I'd put for myself 5k, then I can remove from there. Or say I'd budgeted for something else, another category where I can now come and remove and take care of the food. But it's important to budget, keep track of it, live within your means as much as possible. And I repeat, no is a complete sentence.
No is a complete sentence.
Yes.
It's important that you've brought up the issue of budgeting, because people's savings, they say that we can't save because we are stretched. But when you look at the numbers, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yes.
You look at your budget and see what you're spending. You might find that there are very many impulse spends there.
Exactly.
That money could have gone into savings, right? So that is how people should manage their money.
Exactly. And you know what? You've given a very valid point. When you look at people and the economy, everyone is complaining that they're stretched. But when you look at the amount of money going around, I mean, no wonder even KRA is now into social media. Yes. People are actually spending money. So it means that either there could be people who are spending on needs, on wants, and not their needs. They're spending, they're trying to keep up with, is it the Kardashians or the Joneses, whichever it is. You're really trying to keep up with society, and then now you find that you're in your personal life, then you don't have money to take care of your day-to-day needs. And also something that is also very unfortunate is that now people are getting into debt so that they can just keep an appearance. So it's very important that you live within your means, because you can always borrow. There's nothing bad about borrowing in principle. However, you should have also a plan of getting out of that debt. That debt is not the plan always. That there months, unless it's an emergency, then that should not always be your plan. You should be able to plan around the money that you have. There
are people who believe in living with debt. Like you can't survive without debt.
Yes.
That is why they get hooked onto it. There are very many options right now for getting money or getting credit.
Yes.
What would be your advice in terms of, let's say, responsible borrowing?
Okay, I like that you've called it responsible borrowing, because you really need to sit and think before you take out that loan. Yeah. Number one, I normally think that you should first think of why am I borrowing in the first place. Is it because I want to look like Betty? I want, to get something that Betty has. Is it because there's a legit reason, there's an emergency that I hadn't anticipated, or there's something that really needs my urgent attention? Yeah. Am I borrowing just because I'm used to borrowing? I finished the other loan, so now I'm just like, okay, sasa, what will happen? It's very addictive. That is addictive. Yeah. So it's important to know, why are you borrowing? Is it because also you can never say no? Anytime anyone asks, unapigiwa simu, you're the first person. Yeah. When you're up country, sometimes you get these funny calls or even messages. Sometimes you get even con men telling you, mtoto wako ameumwa na nyoka, or sijui nani amefanya na nini. You're the first person to send money, even you're being conned, because you're a giver. So it's very important to ask yourself, number one, why do I get on debt, into debt a lot? Then number two, after you figured out that reason, or am I living beyond my means? Yeah. Then now, once you figure out that reason, then it's to ask yourself, where am I borrowing? And when we talk about where, a very important factor to look at is how much you're paying in terms of interest. You should try as much as possible to pay the minimum interest possible. Now, I know mobile apps, the loaning apps, are very convenient. You just, take your phone, and you've already gotten the loan. However, they charge a lot of interest.
Right.
I saw recently that CBK is going to try and, regulate. Yeah. And I really hope we get to that point, because they charge a lot of interest. So it's important to check, how much are you paying in interest? Is it money you could borrow from your SACCO? I know SACCO rates are not as bad. Yeah. Could you borrow from your wife or your spouse? And I mean, the people who have chamas right now, they are bowling. They have a lot of money. So could you also talk to her nicely and see whether she could lend you, and at least she'll lend you interest free. Yeah. So it's good, first of all, to check how can you pay the minimal interest as possible. I see many people, they pay several times the amount of loans they took in interest. So you find that, say I took a loan of 10,000, at the end of the day I'm paying 30,000 or 40,000. So you're paying 4 times what you took. So really, are you working to just pay a loan? So it's very important that you look at the interest rate after you ask yourself, why are you borrowing? Then after that, it's to check, now how will I take care of this loan? Yeah, I've seen there are people who take other loans to pay other loans. Yeah, you're just in a cycle of debt. Yeah, you take this to pay the other one. So it's very important to just try and see how you can work yourself out of it by looking at, how can I pay for these loans? A good way of doing that is seeing, how can I minimize my expenditures? Yeah, if you have no way of increasing your income. Yeah, so how you reduce expenditure? Could you move to a cheaper house? Could you even leave the house earlier so that you pay less fare compared to rush hour? I mean, there's a lot of saving, because you'd find that sometimes the fares are double what they are earlier. Yeah, could you carry lunch to work? Actually, it's very healthy, so it can be your 2022 goal. Yeah, you carry lunch, the 100 bob you'd have used, or the 200 bob you'd have used buying food, then you channel it towards paying the loan. So there are many small things you can look at, that how can I save and reduce expenditure, so that I put more towards paying the loan, so that I just finish up with the loans. I think it's very stressful to be in a cycle of loans. I've seen people really stressed about it. So getting out of it would be something that I'd encourage most of us to think about, even as we enter into the new year.
As a person with a wealth of knowledge in financial management, what is your advice to people, or in terms of why people borrow? There's borrowing to invest, and then there's borrowing to, some people even borrow to just purchase shoes, or a fridge or something like that. So what is your advice around that? The why are you borrowing?
Okay, all right. So normally when you're borrowing, as you're asking yourself the why, you should ask, number one, whether it is a need. Is it something that's truly necessary, or is it just a want? Now, when you're talking about the shoes, those are just ones, yeah? You could survive with the shoes that you have. So is it just something that you want, or is it something that you totally need? I say, for instance, someone is in hospital and, you have no insurance, nothing, then I'd understand you'd have to borrow for that. When people say they're borrowing for business, you've talked about borrowing for investment. There's a thin line there. Now, when you're borrowing for an investment or a business, it's important that you make sure that your investment is earning a higher return than what you're paying for the debt. Yeah. So, say for instance, I've gone to my SACCO and my SACCO says offering loans at 12%. Yeah. Then I take the money, I go buy, say, a treasury bond that's giving me 8%. Then there, my mathematics is wrong. Yeah. Or I go start a business that I don't have the concept well planned. I don't have a business case, or it's not even a business I'm exposed to. For instance, if I've already started a business and I can see it's promising, probably I could borrow to continue growing the business. However, if it's a business that is just residing in my mind, and then I go borrow 100K to go start it, and I've not really learned the business, you could find that the business is going into losses. And now I'm paying for the losses of the business, and I still have a loan that I'm servicing. So when you're taking a loan for investments or for business, it's very important that you make sure it is an avenue that will give you more than what you're going to pay for the loan. Otherwise, you'll just have a burden of the loan and a burden of the investment to take care of. So not all borrowing is bad. Some borrowing is good. So for instance, if you're going out to borrow for an investment that is earning higher than the loan, then that makes sense. Yeah. If I'm going to borrow, say, and buy an Uber and then become an Uber driver and earn a living and I can pay off the loan, then that makes sense. If I see people also borrowing for education, if I'm going to borrow and go to school and say the education helps me get a better job, that is normally 50-50, because it will only make sense after you've gotten the better job or you've gotten an increase in salary. However, as you're in the wait, you could now start wondering whether that loan was worthwhile. So there's good debt. Good debt always is a debt that will bring you more than the cost of the debt. That is what I'd say. So when you're thinking of, should I borrow or not borrow, ask yourself, with this debt, give me more than what I'm going to pay for it. If the answer is yes, by all means, go and borrow. If the answer is no, look for other ways of managing first if they're available.
Wow. Okay, that is very interesting information to have. Now let's talk about once someone has saved. You've put aside this amount, it's going to the SACCO, there's a retirement saving somewhere. After how long or how often should someone reevaluate this savings plan? Okay,
that's a good question. I'd encourage as much as possible. You can do it quarterly or even more often, even monthly at the end of the month, as you're looking at how you spend. Because the thing about money, it should not be something you postpone until end of the year. I know right now we are setting resolutions, which is great. However, don't postpone it till the next time you're setting the next resolution. Because now what happens is that you'll find that it is a recurrent resolution. The same way as, us guys who put things like lose weight. It's lose weight for all years. So it's important for your money, you don't do the same thing. So it's important that you make it an active aspect of your life. So you can do it as often as possible, even monthly. Just go and have a look. Okay, I put my money here. What is the interest that it is gaining? What's happening in that company? Have things changed? Could it, be going down and I don't know? So it's important that you're keeping an eye on it, because your money is really an important aspect of your life. So as you earn your salary, say at the end of the month, or as you get your money from your hustle, then you're thinking of where to place it. It's also important to check the eggs that I placed there first. How are they doing? So you can do it as often as possible, even monthly if it's possible, or quarterly. Then now when it comes to when to change, it really depends on your goals. When we started, I said you should have short-term, middle-term and long-term goals. So if you've achieved the short-term goals, then now it's to ask, now what other short-term goals can I set? This is a perfect time you're having this conversation, because we have a new year coming up. So it's to ask, now what do I want to achieve in 2022? Then now you put money aside for that. Once that is done, say for instance, a short-term goal could be what? I want want to buy a fridge or a cooker. Yeah. So once I've saved enough, I've bought the cooker. Now that money that I was putting towards the cooker, where else can I place it? Can I have another short-term goal, or can I put it into my medium-term goal? But it's important at all times. We are very keen on where our money is. So evaluate it as much as possible, monthly or quarterly if you can. Then at the end of the year, then now you can have a wholesome view, because you find some assets, like for instance pension, you'll know the return at the end of the year. So now at the end of the year, now you can have, say, a closing strategic plan for yourself. So this is what I did last year, so what can I do better into the next year?
Right. So reevaluate your plan every so often.
Yes.
That is the conversation we are having here about money, savings, retirement. What are you doing with your money? This conversation continues just after this commercial break. Stay with BizCheck. This is BizCheck and you are watching KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum. The past hour we have been talking about matters to do with money. How are you saving your money? What is your savings plan? And do you have a retirement plan in place? Even if you might be retiring in a year or two, do you have a plan in place? We have been having this discussion with Bancy Kaleli Moturi. She's a business development manager at Enwealth Financial Services. Thank you for staying with us this long, Bancy.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you.
Yes. Now, as we go into a new year, what message do you have for Kenyans as they prepare for the new year?
Okay. So the new year, I think, will be one different year compared to the others. We have COVID, we have elections, we have a lot of globalization. It's now really becoming a global village. And I think we saw this a lot during the last 2 years. So it's very important, number one, to ask yourself, where do you stand in the middle of all this? In terms of your source of livelihood, whether it's a job or if it's a business, is it something that is sustainable? Is it something that is different from what other people are offering? Because now people can easily import the same goods from abroad. So it's very important that you stand out, even professionally, looking at how you can improve your skills in this global village. That's number one. Number two, it's important, if you have debt, to see how we can manage it, reduce it. I think I saw that the CRB listing for people who have, I think, less than 5 million has been extended till September 2022. It's going to come eventually. It would be a shame to see many more Kenyans getting on the CRB list. So it's important to see how we can manage our debt and just, get off debt as fast as possible. Number three, diversify. We don't know how the economy will react with the elections and all these COVID variants, etc. So it's important to have money in different places. Number four, I'd say build your social capital as well. We normally say your network is your net worth. So it's important to also surround yourselves with people who will help you grow, who will help you increase your earning capability and even secure it. So at least you can have a secured financial position. And then number four, educate yourself. It's very important to have the education around financial matters, and don't postpone retirement saving. Open a personal pension account today. We have a very good one at Enwealth Financial Services. Feel free to talk to us. Open yourself a retirement account and start saving, putting aside something as little as it may be for your future. And your future will thank you.
Right. Yeah. Your future will thank you. Well, we shall be getting back to this conversation in a bit. We are in studio with Bancy Kaleli Moturi, a business development manager at Enwealth Financial Services, and we have been talking about matters money, how to ensure that you are saving according to your income needs, and what to do to ensure that your retirement is favorable to you financially. Well, Bancy, let's just wrap this up now. Let's wrap up the conversation. what is your message to Kenyans as your closing remarks in terms of responsible saving, responsible planning for their retirement?
Okay, thank you, Betty. I think over the last 1 hour, we've really gone around. We've talked about debt management, we've talked about diversification, we've talked about even checking, background checks on where you place your money, how often you should review your investments, etc. At Enwealth Financial Services, we normally say that you can never go wrong with a personal pension because it's a diversified portfolio, number one. It's well regulated, and then the returns are also very favorable. As I told you, we are talking about 14-15% just last year. So it's very important that as you're looking for where you're going to place your money, you also think about your future, and the pension will also give you that option. So for the young people, please don't postpone it. As I said, retirement is any time you leave employment. You could be 22, you could be 25. This money comes in handy. I wish we could have these conversations, say with people who are retrenched during this COVID season, and they'll tell you how their pension came through because they were able to access that money, start businesses, or even just take care of household needs as they're looking for a new job. So it is always a plan that you can rely on, and it is safe. And I think that's what most people are thinking about when they're looking at where to place their money. So don't hesitate. Feel free to contact us at Enwealth, and we'll be more than happy to support you. And as a closing remark, take care of your future so that it thanks you, and that you continue enjoying the same standard of life that you're living now, even in the future, at whatever point in time that will be.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to end the conversation. Thank you, Bancy.
Thank you so much, Betty.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
That is Bancy Kaleli Moturi. She has been talking about matters money, how to ensure that you are saving right. And remember, it's not too late to start, neither is it too early to start saving. We have been having that conversation. She is a business development manager at Enwealth Financial Services. We now want to switch gears to another conversation after this short break. Stay with us.